Hey guys, let's talk about books. Let's try and talk about books in a way that I don't have to edit this video much, if at all, except to put the titles, because looking at the clock, I have to be out of the house in 20 minutes. So let's speed run. I'm going to try. This situation, in case you were wondering, it's not usual for me. This is my emotional support singlet because I am an elder millennial woman. My work shirt obviously will go over the top. I'm not going to dox myself that hard on YouTube. I have been reading and finished Papyrus by Irene Vallejo. The subtitle is The Invention of Books in the Ancient World. It's translated by Charlotte Whittle. Irene Vallejo is a Spanish classicist. The call number is 002.09, which is History of Books. I liked it. That doesn't have a question mark at the end. I did like it, full stop. But it did meander around the point. I was confused a lot about where the story was going and how it related to books and how we were going to get back to books. But when I finished and I looked at the contents page, there was a plan. There's always a plan. So some things like, why are we talking so much about the culture of Rome? Well, of course, we need the culture of Rome to get Roman literature. Why are we talking about women in particular? Well, we need to know about women's books in the ancient world, that sort of thing. So there was a point, it just wasn't immediately obvious when I didn't read the chapter titles, because I never do. Don't read the blurbs and I don't read the chapter titles. So it's my own fault. Overall, it was interesting. I don't know that I did learn lots. I don't know that I learned much about the history of books, but I did have a good time, and I learned about books in historical context, which is actually really nice. There was a lot of interjections from the author of like personal anecdotes, how she came to books, how she came to classics, all that sort of thing, which were a nice aside, but not particularly relevant to the story that's being told here. Is more autobiographical. But it wasn't enough to be annoying. It was a bit like, oh, there's a person writing this book who's having a conversation with me about the book. So, I mean, it's a bestseller for a reason. It got translated and into paperback quickly for a reason. So if you're interested, I would not say don't read it. Then I finished, is this the receipt? Here's a bookmark. Yes, I finished Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginbotham. The call number here is, I don't have my glasses, 363.17990947777, which really tickles me to be so specifically nuclear disasters in the Ukraine. There must be a lot written about Chernobyl. This book was horrifying in the best way. How can I say that? I hope you understand what I mean by that. It was horrifying. It was terrifying. It was revolting and disgusting in all the ways that you would expect. It's a horrific thing to have happened, to have lived through, to have to make decisions about and have to live with the consequences of the decisions that were made without having a say in it. But it's also fascinating to see inside the USSR bureaucracy, and also in the aftermath where they were dealing with the aftermath of this for years and obviously decades since then. But it would be what are the words? The immediate aftermath, those first decade after the reactor exploded, the USSR collapsed. They had no money to fulfill all the promises made to people about how we were going to support you, and they had no money to do much in the way of containing the ongoing effects So that's freaking scary. And then, of course, the last chapter is everybody vowed no more nuclear, would decommission all the nuclear. And then, like, America got up nuclear again. China's getting up nuclear. Fukushima happened. And that was only 2011, I think, Fukushima. And now we're talking about nuclear again. Let's get nuclear in Australia. It's a perpetual conversation. So, and the argument is made that compared to fossil fuel burning, like coal plants and gas plants, nuclear is environmentally safer until it isn't. But it has perpetually proved to isn't. So that's delightful. I started watching this show and I don't like it. I'm 2 episodes in out of 6. So because I bought it, I will watch it all because I'm not paying for another streaming service. But I'm not enjoying it. We'll see. We'll see. So if you're interested in what happened in Chernobyl, even if you lived through it and all you got was journalism of the time, this might be of interest to you. Certainly, I enjoyed his other book, Challenger, more, and I think that's just because of the improvement in the writing style. Not the research is impeccable. The research in Challenger is impeccable. Highly recommend both. I bought some books. I bought a few books actually. So, shall we just begin at the beginning? I picked up this shiny gold foil copy of Matrix by Lauren Groff, which I have read. I have it on my Kindle, and so I liked it so much I need a real copy. This was recently in a sale. I will link my review of Matrix. It's a book that at the time I think I said I didn't really vibe with it, but I keep thinking about it. So that tells you something. It tells me something. Would we like a blurb? Is there a blurb? Born from a long line of female warriors and crusaders and cast out from the royal court, Marie de France is sent to Angleterre to become the prioress of an abbey. She's a teenager at this point, and they're all like, obviously she's got this prioress position because of her family, not because of, a meritocracy. Marie wields her strength. That is a full sentence. Marie wields her strength. Teaching sword fighting and dagger work, she sets a bold new course for the nuns she leads, bringing herself and her sisters into richness and powers. There is a tiny bit of magical realism in this, but it's more like, obviously she's a nun, so it's more of a spiritual magicalness. But it's mainly about Marie trying to, forging a family in the convent and then trying to protect that family. And the things that she does to do that are messages from a higher power. It was great. Weird, but great. This one was in a sale. Hardcover, brand new. It was published this year, so I don't know why it was so cheap, but I'm loving it. This is Spice, the 16th century contest that shaped the modern world by Roger Crowley, or Crowley, depending how you want to say that. The only thing I know about this book is the cover is amazing. The end papers are pretty cool too. But like with many non-fiction works, the subtitle gives you the gist. The call number here is 382.41383, which is foreign trade. Let me look that up for us. Under 300s of social sciences, then down into commerce, then international commerce and foreign trade, and then by product. So specifically by the product of spice. I don't know who Roger Crowley is, if they're a reputable scholar in any way, but I'm going to give it a go. Man, this makes it difficult to read. I should just suck it up and remember to bring my glasses, shouldn't I? Columbus did not seek to discover the Americas. Magellan did not intend to circumnavigate the world. I don't think it's... Anyway. Columbus did not seek to discover the Americas. Magellan did not intend to circumnavigate the world. Their true goal was the Indies, the aim to track spices back to their mysterious and valuable source. An insatiable European desire for cloves and nutmeg drove the early modern world economy. When the Portuguese finally reached the spice island of the Moluccas in 1511, they set in motion a fierce competition for control. With great storytelling verve, Roger Crowley shows how this struggle shaped the modern world. From 1511 to 1571, European powers linked up the oceans, established vast maritime empires, and gave birth to global trade, all in an attempt to dominate the supply of spices. Taking us on voyages from the dockyards of Seville to the vastness of the Pacific, the volcanic spice islands of Indonesia, the Arctic Circle, and the coasts of China, this is a narrative history rich in vivid eyewitness accounts of the adventures, shipwrecks, and sieges that formed the first colonial encounters and remade the world economy for centuries to follow. So, that sounds awesome, of course, but also early modern history is not something I'm super familiar with. Obviously, I know medieval stuff, and medieval is such a broad, expansive time. It's 1,000 years. But the early modern period goes from approximately the end of the Tudors, the death of Henry VIII, through to the Industrial Revolution. So it's a couple of centuries where we have Elizabeth I and all of those things that you think of, the big ruffles, Shakespeare. But of course, the early modern empire is bigger. The early modern world is bigger than just the British Empire. And I say that with that being my frame of reference for what early modern is. So I'm excited to get into spices and proto-colonialism, which is full-blown colonialism by the end of this period. Thanks, we hate it. And the last one is one that my daughter bought for me, which was very nice of her. It is Oathbreakers, the War of Brothers that shattered an empire and made medieval Europe. This is by Matthew Gabriel and David M. Perry, who wrote The Bright Ages, which I read and possibly made a video about. I definitely wrote a blog post about it back when that was a thing I was doing. Call number here is 944.01, which is the France before 1941 in particular. Let me check for you. 1987. This is, I'll read you the blurb. By the early 9th century, the Carolingian Empire was at the height of its power. The Franks, led by Charlemagne, had built the largest European... Slow down. The Franks, led by Charlemagne, had built the largest European domain since Rome in its heyday. But just 2 generations later, their world was in shambles. Civil war, once an unthinkable threat, had erupted after Louis the Pious's sons tried to overthrow him, and then placed their knives at one another's necks. Families who once charged into battle together now drew each other's blood. The Carolingian civil war would rage for years as kings fought kings, brothers faced off against brothers, and sons challenged fathers. Oathbreakers is the dramatic history of this brutal, turbulent time. Medieval historians Matthew Gabriel and David M. Perry illuminate what happens when a once unshakable political and cultural order breaks down and long-suppressed tensions flare into deadly violence. They do say that history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Drawn from rich primary sources featuring a wide cast of characters, blah, blah, blah. So I know nothing about France between Charlemagne and the Holy Roman Empire. So this is interesting. And I'm excited to read it. Published a couple of days ago, I think. Definitely December 2024. So thanks, kiddo. I'm excited to read that. Currently, I skipped that part. Currently, I'm reading Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, which I bought on ebook and audiobook, and I have a physical copy waiting for me at the bookstore. So you'll have the picture up this side, I think they go. I don't know. Let me find out how far I am into it. Wind and Truth is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive. I'm 10%. The 5th book in the Stormlight Archive is the end of the first arc. There's supposed to be one arc of 5 and then another arc of 5 in the larger world of the Cosmere that Sanderson writes in. So in this one, I'm expecting stories to be tied up, probably main characters to die. It would make sense in this one to kill off some main characters and also to have some mysteries resolved. What else can I tell you? We're at the point now where all the people who have gained their hero powers, and they do have hero superpowers at this point, are breaking off. The war leader, Dalinar, is basically fighting a god. He's got like a god familiar, or he is the familiar of the god, like a god, not an actual god. And they're having this battle for control over the whole planet. One of the main characters from the beginning, Kaladin, has to go off to this part of the planet that we haven't seen before as readers, except in little vignettes, and where one of the main characters comes from. And then the final main character from the beginning, Shalon, I don't know what she's doing. She's been dealing with some mental health issues. They all have actually been dealing with mental health issues. She's just come back to the main base to, I don't know, we're only 10% in. I can tell you from experience of Brandon Sanderson that the first 15% is really gripping and I'm struggling to put the book down to go to sleep. But then it will probably feel like it's dragging from 15% to 75% and I'll just be like, oh, get on with it. Like the depth of the story and the breadth of the story is great if you're into that, and clearly I am, but it does start to feel like it's dragging, and then it gets to 75% and it's a roller coaster to the end and you can't put it down. So I'm bracing myself for the slog that I know is coming, but I know that ultimately I will enjoy the whole thing, because so far in this 10% there's POV characters that have been in previous books that we haven't even heard about yet. So there's room to expand. The audiobook is 36 hours. I think the physical book's about 1,000 pages. Actually, I can check here. $1,329 is the Kindle page count, and I've read 130 of those pages. So there's a while to go. I'm getting my money's worth, even though I did buy 3 editions, and I will have a physical copy to hold up for you next time. But again, it's one of those books where I can't go into the details of the story because it's spoilery for the whole thing. But maybe I could, think about the themes. I have to go in half a minute, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for hanging out with me in this rushed edition. Hopefully it will be edited in a timely fashion. And I will see you anon. Bye.